This is a small section of the superior sagittal sinus. So the blood would be coming down, meeting at a point right here called the confluence of sinuses, and then emerging laterally from the confluence, the transverse sinuses on either side. And then transverse becomes sigmoid right about here. And then sigmoid is going to run inferior and medial. And so you can see that light blue there. And then it's going to disappear and go straight down, where it empties into the internal jugular vein. Connecting all of this, and all of this blue is the cavernous sinuses, are two petrosal. So you have superior petrosal here. So it connects the cavernous sinuses to the very top of sigmoid. And then remember, sigmoid comes down before it disappears because it projects inferiorly at that point. Well, here's inferior petrosal sinus. So inferior petrosal, superior petrosal. We also have several arteries that serve the brain. So we have the vertebrals, right and left, that have emerged through the foramen magnum. They come together here. They form the basilar, which comes all the way up, and then it terminates as two branches called posterior cerebral arteries. And then these two posterior cerebral arteries are connected to the internal carotid arteries by posterior communicating. So that little piece there and that little piece there. And then running anteriorly from the internal carotid, and you can see just a tiny bit of it there and here. Those are the ophthalmic arteries. So they're running alongside the optic nerve, and together they run through the optic canal to reach the orbit. So we have ophthalmic artery on one side, posterior communicating on the other, and both of those vessels are connected to the internal carotid artery right there. From this view, that's about it for arteries and veins. This piece goes over the top. So now we can see superior sagittal sinus, the whole thing. We can see straight sinus here, and then we can see this smaller inferior sagittal sinus that empties into the straight. So remember, straight is going to join up with the transverse and the superior sagittal sinus, and they're all going to form the confluence of sinuses. So here's another view of the confluence. Here we're going through the straight sinus. Straight sinus is connected to inferior sagittal sinus. And then on the sides of the confluence, transverse sinuses, and then of course superior sagittal. And then when you see the transverse sinus bend and turn down, it's becoming sigmoid right here. So this vessel here would be superior petrosal, and then it's connecting to cavernous sinuses, right? We're just seeing a tiny bit of the cavernous sinuses on this model. We can see a lot more here, all of the blue.